Yeah. Good morning, students. Welcome to ARK Reflections IAS newspaper analysis of the day. So, ee roju mana newspaper gurinchi మనం will discuss what are the important highlight points. So, the first headlines చూసుకుంటే 9.8 lakh deletions in the Odisha's sorry. So, 9.8 lakh deletions in Odisha's best Odisha's voter rolls. And core sector activity contracts 0.4% in March. Why this core sector is very important and what are the important industries in this core sector? India have 8 important industries in the core sector. Any impact or any dip in their growth, or in their profits or anything happen to these 8 core sectors definitely impacts our India's GDP. Because these 8 core sectors contributes around 40% of India's GDP. And we'll also see what are, in the prelims perspective, the simple knowledge, like we have to know what are these 8 core sectors. So here we can clearly see with the war impact, so there is the growth, the sector activity growth cuts 0.4% in March. Next important article we can see here is forest could be double carbon storage by 2100. So in the next 80 years, after the next 75 years around, so by 2100, like 2100 year, so the forest could double carbon storage. So forest could able to take the carbon more. Next, vulnerability in India's LPG supply model. So we'll discuss all these three, especially today. We'll discuss vulnerability in India's LPG supply model. You can see clearly this time. So we don't have a major issues with the fuel or petrol or any fuel shortages. So maybe we have some minor issues, but it was quickly resolved. But when it comes, and we also see that the prices of the fuel was not increased that much. So the prices of the fuel was not increased that much. But when it comes to the gas, so we can see the huge dips even in the household market, and you can see when it takes to the commercial space. So we have unlimited issues we have seen, like huge issues. We can see the rise of the prices, rise of the food prices. Many workers lost their jobs, many hotels are closed, and some menu, the items in the menu was decreased, and there is no fries and all these things. So this is one of the side effects of why India's LPG vulnerability. Unlike the petrol reserves, we don't have much LPG reserves. So unlike the other countries who are importing more LPG than India, for example, Japan, these countries, so usually they are rerouting that LPG, the imported LPG, for the commercial purpose, for petrochemicals and other manufacturing. India, when you take India, most of our imported LPG was directed to the household purpose, which is very highly vulnerable and especially added to the choke points. So the vulnerability of LPG for India is very high. So we'll also discuss all these things. And next, Iran undecided on talks, Trump to keep the blockade. So what happened? There is one US naval vessel which attacked the Iranian container ship, which attacked. So Tehran obviously it condemned the attack, but as the talks are happening, Iran was undecided based on the demands of US. So what the US is telling that, Trump is telling that until the Iran is clear about its decisions, so I will not lift the blockade. That is very, very important. So next, so you see here, this is one of the very core issue, like 3-year-old girl mauled to death by stray dogs. So the stray dogs issue was going on, right? So 3-year-old girl, so when she is walking alone, stray dogs came and they have beaten her very badly, and it caused the death. So very, very sad news. When it comes to the this TGPSC groups, so there is some tourist circuits are coming from the TG government. So just imagine, because these are the things which you can get in the prelims perspective, and also you can add it to the mains also about the tourism of the Telangana, like spiritual circuit, eco wellness circuit, heritage circuit, craft circuit, Buddhist circuit, and water circuit. So these are the important circuits are coming. So just have a look, especially for the TGPSC aspirants. So next, you see, this is also very important. There is an advertisement. Here, what is the advertisement? The advertisement was about JSW, Jindal Steel, and POSCO of Korea. So what happening today? Today what happening? Like there is one new greenfield steel plant in Odisha. New greenfield steel plant in Odisha, and that steel plant is, so this is the steel plant. So where a landmark 50:50 joint venture, 50:50, 50% by POSCO, which is a Korean global, one of the top, POSCO is one of the top global leading steel manufacturers, and even the Jindal also. There is a 50:50 joint venture between the JSW Steel and POSCO, two of the world leading steel makers. And what kind of steel they make? They make high grade flat steel. And what is the, and diverse applications, automotive, serving India and all. So steel is very, very important. Why this steel is very, very important? Steel, because as we also discussed, there is a dip in the 0.4%, and steel is one of the 8 core industries of India. Because without steel consumption, without steel, we don't have buildings, we don't have roads, we don't have automotives, we don't have equipment manufacturing. Steel is a very, very, very important base material. So with the growth of steel increases, then it means the growth of the country is also increases. At present, India is also net importer, because the steel which we are producing in India is not enough. We are importing the steel from Japan, we are importing the steel from Korea, we are importing the steel from Vietnam, we are also importing the steel from China, even to make our advanced stealth frigate ships and also the defense equipment. We need the steel. So this cooperation is very, very important. And very few months back, there is also one more, like Nippon of Japan and ArcelorMittal of India. They both started steel plant in Andhra Pradesh. This capacity was 24 metric tons. 24 metric tons steel they produce. And with this, they produce around 6 metric tons of the steel. 6 metric tons per annum. So this is their steel capacity. Very, very important. To make the India Vikasit Bharat, you need a lot of steel for the construction. So bridges, roads, everything, even our houses. Without steel, we can't do anything. So these are very important. And next. So there is a Shankara Jayanti, and what are the important, like you can go to take the ancient history as a thing, and Adi Shankaracharya is very, very important for the Bhakti movement. And you can see he also established 4 matas, Jyotir Mat, and there is Kanchi Kamakoti, Sharada Mat, and in Dwaraka there is one mat, in Puri there is one mat. Like that, he established 4 matas. So Adi Shankaracharya is also very important for the history perspective. And when it comes to, here we can see one news. There is an institute called IICT, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. What they have done, they have prepared a new catalyst which can make high quality bioethanol from the leftover or crushed sugarcane. So we drink the sugarcane juice, right? After the sugarcane juice, after we drink, there is a waste, sugarcane waste. So with the sugarcane waste, they made bioethanol with more efficiently. So they made a catalyst which can convert, which can help to make this bio waste, so sugarcane waste, into the best bioethanol product. So that is what these IICT scientists have developed this catalyst, very important, which is currently in the Hyderabad. Next, this editorial, the strategic vulnerability in India's LPG supply model, very, very, very important. So this article clearly shows, like, for the petroleum crisis, petroleum or the fuel crisis, India somewhat effectively managed, because India has a huge storage capacity, nearly 90 days of storage capacity, and also, but not with the gas. So that's why we are unable to supply the gas, especially to the all sections of the society. We only prioritize the household, but not the commercial sector. So that is important. And yeah, other important news. So this is very important news. The India's forests could nearly double carbon storage by 2100. Study finds India forest could nearly double the carbon storage. India forest by 2100. So it can hold more carbon. So what are the important findings of this study? We'll also discuss that. And this one, the core sector activity contracts 0.4% in March, the war impact. So what are the core sectors of India? Very important. We'll also discuss what are the important core sectors. And next, the draft rules for the rollout of ethanol 85. We see the ethanol E20 blended petrol. Now it is compulsory. All the petrol, all the petroleum and all the petrol bunks, they only supply, only fill our bike tanks with the E20 petrol. That is, the government made it compulsory from the April 1st. Okay, E20 blended petrol is everywhere now. And next, E85 is coming. E85 means the 85% ethanol is there. For that, so normal traditional E20 bike engines will not work. There is the need to make a separate special engines for to use this ethanol 85. So next. Yeah, these are the important news articles of the day. And yeah, this is also very important, as we also discussed that. So Vaishali. So he has won the FIDE candidates trophy. FIDE candidates trophy. And now she will compete the world chess champion. The person who wants the candidates trophy of the chess, they will compete with the present world chess champion, and very soon there will be a matches for the world chess championship. So that is what. So yeah, we'll discuss each thing in detail. So first article, we'll see the strategic vulnerability of India's LPG. So what the problem here is, so India has strategic vulnerability of LPG. Why? Because India imports 60% of its LPG needs. 60% of LPG needs, and 40% will be produced by domestic, like the KG, gas basin, and other places from domestic. So this is fine. But why is the problem? Why we face a severe LPG shortage issues? Why? Because one of the main reasons, what the author has discussed, unlike the other countries, most of the LPG which is imported by India is using for the household purpose. So household usage is high. Household usage is major part. And one more important thing, unlike the other countries, we don't have strategic gas reserves. Just like our petrol, we don't have the strategic gas reserves. There are some strategic gas reserves in Visakhapatnam and some places, but that is only a fraction of gas reserves which we required. Okay, here we can clearly see the LPG in India is overwhelmingly a household fuel. Commercial LPG accounts less than 10%. Usually the foreign countries, the commercial usage of the gas will be more, nearly 60%. But in India, it is only 10%, and which means more than 90% of the imported LPG is going to our kitchens, which is not very, very good for the country. because it makes our kitchens, our household more vulnerable, more vulnerable. And next, so here clearly he has given some table here. He has given a table. What it is he is telling here clearly indicates that India LPG import share is 60%, and the domestic percentage is 250%, and LPG imports as domestic production is very high. LPG imports percentage of domestic production is nearly 150%. We have only 15 days. Only we have the 15 days of the storage reserves. 15 days of storage reserves. So here he compared with India, Japan, Korea. So he compared, and he clearly is telling that the storage capacity is too high. For example, if you take the Japan, it is 108 days, and Korea, it was around 30 days. Korea, it was around 30 days. Even the China, no clear public LPG, but it was also in the good moderate phase. But what is the difference between all these countries like India, Japan, Korea, and China? These countries, the LPG usage is much less. The household LPG was much lesser. So what does that mean? So they are pushing their people to try to alternatives like the electricity based induction or some natural gas based other kind of gas materials. But in case of India, we don't have alternative. For example, if you take the petrol, so you can give the alternative easily by replacing, okay, instead of petrol cars, you can ask the people to buy the electric vehicles, and you can try to decrease the prices or taxes on these electric vehicles. But when it comes to the gas consumption, so it is not easy to find an alternative. So the LPG presently we are using, that is the only mode of fuel for the cooking at present. Okay. So that's what here the author has telling, we have to learn the lessons from Japan. So what kind of lessons? So unlike India, which 90% of LPG was for household, but in Japan only 45% or the 40% is for household. And what are the other, these household, they are using other type of fuels. So that is what he is telling in simply. Yeah. So what he is telling in simple idea, he is asking people like government to push the Indians to use less LPG, and he also prefers to increase the storage capacity of this LPG, and also make sure that LPG is diversified from the different markets, so it doesn't absorbed by these choke point shocks or the Iran, these kind of wars. The author is suggesting to diversify the imports, because unlike the petroleum, LPG is already pre-booked, because mostly the LPG is used in the chemicals and manufacturing process will be very high. The petrochemical companies, they already pre-book all the orders if there is any shock happened on sudden. So if you need a LPG fuel on the immediate basis, so it is very limited to get these kind of immediate basis supply of this LPG. So next article will see the Indian forests could nearly double the carbon storage. So what the author is clearly telling that by 2100, the carbon storage will be double. Is it a good thing or the bad thing? Yeah, it is a good thing, but it also brings some consequences also, as he mentions here clearly. So this is what published in the Environmental Research and Climate. So they published, so India's forest could nearly double, and the biggest increases in the vegetations. So biggest increases in the vegetation means the forests will increase, but the forests morely will increase. He is telling the places of semi-arid zones of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh. So Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, semi-arid zones, not the vegetation thick zones like the Himachal Pradesh or the Himalayan area, the Western Ghats and the Himalayas. So this is not the place where the forests will increase because already forests are there. So already it was standardized intake of the carbon dioxide to that places. But the new forests will come in the places of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh. That is what the study says. And also it is telling that especially after 2050, the absorption of the carbon dioxide will increase. The absorption of the carbon dioxide will increase. And also the consequences here, the consequences he mentioned was the carbon absorption, the CO2 absorption is a double-edged sword. Carbon absorption is a double-edged sword. Why double-edged sword? When the carbon absorption increased and the forests increase, and with the climate change, the carbon dioxide is increasing, and that carbon dioxide is absorbed by these forests. And with this same climate change, as the forests are used as a carbon sinks, and with the climate change, with the forest fires, what happens? The same forest, clearly understand, the same forest who is absorbing the carbon dioxide will become the carbon dioxide generators while the forests are burning through the forest fires. So we expect the forest should take the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So that is what happening, that is what the studies tell. At the same time, with the climate change, if you don't contain the climate change, when the carbon dioxide is more pumped, and also with the climate change, we can see the heat increases, the summers are more. So we can see the forests burning, the area for the forest to burn, the fuel, wood supply will be more. And these same forests who are absorbing the carbon generate more carbon. So that is what here the author is warning. So extending about the 4 years under the high emission scenario, the account fact for the single wet year and the woody biomass accumulates slowly, because this carbon accumulation of these forests will not take in 2 or 3 years or 4 years. At least it will take a decade to acquire this whole biomass. That is what it is telling. But he is also telling about the human pressures. Human pressures like land usage change, extreme events such as wildfires and droughts. Very, very important. So these are the important, and we'll come to the next article. So core sector activity contracts 0.4% in March. So what happened? You can see August 24, there is a dip, but after there is only increase in these core sectors. The 8 core industries contracted in March 2026 on the impact of West Asia crisis. You see, there is no decline in the growth. But here we can see in the March 26, there is 0.4% decline in the India's 8 core industries. So what is the India's 8 core industries? What is the 8 core industries? When it takes the energy, if you divide into different sectors, so first one is energy. In the energy, oil, gas, electricity. So these comes into the picture. Oil, gas, electricity, these are comes into the core energy sectors. And when it comes to the infrastructure, steel and cement. Steel and cement, very important. And in the energy, the one more was coal. So here we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, steel and cement 5, 6, and 7 and 8 was supply sectors like fertilizers and finished fuel goods, like the finished fuel goods like diesel, petrol. These are the core sector. So these are 7 and this is 8. So these are the 8 core industries of India, very, very important, which almost has like 40% of India's GDP, which can impact the 40% of the India's GDP, and any drop in these core sectors. So which means the economy or the growth rate of India is getting down. Especially here we can see this only happened in the last time in the COVID-19 2021, the major dip. but again it is seeing that one more major dip. In August, of course, it is happened, but now the steel growth is also very low. These are the core, but in the prelims perspective, these 8 core sectors are very, very important, starting from the coal, oil, gas and electricity, steel and cement, fertilizers and finished fuel goods like petroleum and diesel. So these are very important. So here we can see the government shows data. 4 out of the 8 core sectors of the economy contracted. In March 26, the growth in the full year of 25-26 was the lowest since the COVID-19 pandemic. So that is what it is. So next article we'll see. So draft rules for rollout of ethanol 85. So E85. So here we can see that E85 is a new kind of. So we can see the petrol and the fuel import. So India is not very energy self-sufficient country. India is the country which heavily depend on the imports for its energy needs. And these recent West Asia crisis exposed India's energy vulnerability, being it in the LPG or being in the petroleum or the other fuel-based imports, or even in the fertilizers like urea. So what happens? So India want to become the self-sufficient. So that's why India started its green hydrogen program, biofuel, international biofuel alliances, global biofuel alliance. And similarly, it also bringing the ethanol 85 fuel. Means ethanol 85 fuel in the sense. So engine will run 85% of ethanol. 85% of ethanol. Engine runs on 85% of ethanol. So that's what India is looking, and very soon it's going to launch this draft policy. So 85% of ethanol and 15% of petrol or gasoline. So that is the plan. This is the alternative for the existing E20. In the E20, almost 27% we can use the blended ethanol. So 27%, and by this month April, so Indian government made sure that every fuel bunk, every petrol bunk in the country should only sell this E20 petrol. Okay. So 85% of the ethanol, 15%. Yeah, these are the important things. And very soon, the engine. So to use this 85 ethanol E85, there should be special engines. So not every engine can't use. For example, the older models before E20 models will take some time, or the rust, it can increase in the engine space or in the tank space if they use the new technology engines, the new technology fuels like the E20 or the E85. And E20 can't use the E85. E85 case, they need a special engines. And also government has a plan to, so an engine designed to run on the E85 can also operate on the lower ethanol blends like including E60 and E50. So very soon India want to increase this. What thing we can understand here is, so you can see clearly from E20 government want to increase to E85. So now at present E20 ethanol, 20% ethanol, 80% gasoline was there. But what is the future goal? Future goal was ethanol should be 85% and 15% only petrol. So what is the ultimate objective behind this? Because India want to not dependent on these global fuel supply shocks, and they want to become energy independent. So ethanol and fuel we can made in India itself. As we can see that researchers like IICT, they have producing the better strong bioethanol using from the waste sugarcane waste. So like that we have ample production of the sugarcane and other food industries. So where they can make the much better biofuels, so that India will be more fuel independent nation. So these are the important articles of today, and we'll discuss the newspaper analysis of tomorrow. Okay, thank you.